There we go. Go ahead.
Okay. Our mission. Helping Parents Heal is a nonprofit organization dedicated to assisting bereaved parents to become shining light parents by providing support and resources to aid in the healing process. We go a step beyond other groups by allowing the open discussion of spiritual experiences and evidence for the afterlife in a non-dogmatic way. Affiliate groups welcome everyone, regardless of religious or non-religious background, and allow for open dialogue. Attendance today at this meeting is voluntary, and we are here for the benefit of learning from and sharing with other parents whose child has passed away. It is understood that our discussions are intended to be confidential and not designed to replace traditional therapy or spiritual counseling. Helping Parents Heal offers a wide variety of speakers to allow parents to be informed about many possible ways to heal, to connect with their children, and to learn about the afterlife. The views expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect those of Helping Parents Heal, and we ask that you take from their presentations whatever may benefit you personally.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much, Irene. And I'm going to go ahead and read Linda's bio. And again, Linda's a very close friend of mine. I feel so grateful that she lives very close to where I am here in Cave Creek. And she is also the head of the Caring Listeners and the author of this new book, The Myth of Dying. I was going to hold it up and show it to you, but I bought it on ebook, so I don't have a copy to show you. But maybe Linda can show you after.
Right, yeah.
She is a board-certified metaphysician with a doctorate in metaphysical counseling, certified grief counselor, author, educator, and researcher. Linda's primary focus is to identify the concerns of her clients and work with them to develop a customized approach to achieve their desired outcome. Together, a strategy is designed to create a new relationship with your beliefs about spirituality and what role it plays in your life and afterlife. This personalized approach allows simple yet effective strategies incorporated into your daily life, leading you in a new direction. So, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Linda McCarthy, the head of the Caring Listeners.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Irene, for that wonderful introduction, and thank you all for being here. The reality is I never thought I would be here. I never thought I would be talking to you about this subject. But now I can't imagine my life without all of you. You're such an integral part of it. My encounters with death actually started very early when I was 5. My dad was the love of my life, and he was washing the car, and he suddenly died of a heart attack while I was watching him. And all I was told was that he went to heaven, but I didn't know where heaven was and what a 5-year-old does. And then as I got older and I started to lose, we never lose, but friends from elementary school passed, and then friends from high school passed, and then my siblings started to pass, and more relatives and friends, and every single time I heard that they had gone to heaven, and I had no idea where heaven was. Fast forward a number of years, I got married, I got pregnant, and in my 2nd trimester, I had a miscarriage. It was a little boy, and the doctor said, it just wasn't a viable pregnancy, don't worry about it. He said, wait a couple months, you can get pregnant again. And that was it. There was no resources for even discussing a miscarriage. I just had to quietly mourn that by myself. And he was right. Several months later, I got pregnant again. I had my beautiful daughter, Shannon. And 18 months later, my son, Sean, came along. And I'd like to share a little bit of Sean with you, if I may. Sean, like so many of our kids, very talented. I see that over and over and over with the parents saying, how incredibly talented and gifted all of our kids are. He was a good student. He was a great athlete. Everything that he did, whether it was baseball, swimming, tennis, golf, soccer, he would end up being the champion in every single one of those sports. But he was also highly empathic, and he loved to write. And when he was in middle school, he wrote a poem that I wasn't even aware of. And it was 2 pages long, and he submitted it. He gave it to his teacher. And it was called Camelot Ended Today. And it was about the death of John Kennedy. And his teacher was so moved that she sent it in for publication, and it was published. So he was published long before I ever was. He was just an amazing young man, as all of our kids are. Very generous, would give his money to strangers if they needed it. And he and I had this relationship. I don't know how to explain it except to say we had a language of our own. It wasn't telepathic, and it was but more than mother's intuition. And again, I don't really know how to explain it except to say that it was special. And of course, you know, they grow up and they go to high school and life gets in the way. And I remember one day they were both in high school, and I woke up and I had this, not even a need or a desire, it was more an obsession to know what happens when you die. And I didn't know why, I just needed to know. And I remember finding Raymond Moody's book, Life After Life, and I started studying Max Planck, the father of quantum physics. I started studying his work on the nature of reality. And even Lynn Grabhorn had written a book, and she's since crossed over, but it was called Excuse Me, Your Life is Waiting. And I devoured every single book that I could get my hands on. And during that time, I was fortunate enough to find a position with a company called Natural Healing. It was a wellness center, and one of the practitioners there was a shaman, and her name was Ronnie. And I couldn't talk to anybody about my crazy obsession about death except her. And she taught me a lot about astral bodies and other realities, many other realities other than this. And one day, she was also a massage therapist, and she said to me, you know, that pain in your shoulder is never going to go away, even though you keep coming to see me, until I remove the spear, yes, the spear from your scapula. And I said, what spear? What are you talking about? She said, there's a spear that took your life in a previous lifetime, and it's energetically still attached to you. And if you give me permission, if you allow me to remove it, I'll take it away and you'll never have that pain again. I don't know if it was real. I don't know if it was a placebo. I just know I gave her permission. She never touched me, and it was quite intense, the pain, but then it went away and it never came back. So I don't know. I just know that the pain was gone, and I was very happy about that. And then the kids grow up, and Sean graduated from Virginia Tech, and he became an ensign and was assigned to Jacksonville, Florida at first, and then he was deployed to the Middle East. And I didn't see him for a very long time, but even during that time when he was on the other side of the world, we always talked on Sunday. And for some, I don't know how he did it, but every Sunday I would get an email from him. And it might be Tuesday or Wednesday where he was, but he always communicated with me to let me know that he loved me and he was thinking about me. And when he got home, his next assignment was to Virginia Beach. And he was assigned to Navy Special Warfare, which is the organization that trains Navy SEALs. And even though he loved San Diego and he wanted to stay there if he could, he was still excited about going to Virginia Beach because After all, he went to Virginia Tech and he was very familiar with it. And I remember the call. He said, would you mind, I've got 2 weeks leave, would you mind if I came and I stayed with you for 2 weeks, for a week, pardon me, before I leave? And I was thrilled, but I remember saying to him, of course, but why? Like, why would you want to come hang out with your mom and dad when you could be with your friends in San Diego? And he said, I just want to be home. And we had the best time. He golfed. We shopped for his apartment. We had a wonderful, wonderful time. And I remember when he was leaving, and I remember exactly where I was standing, and I hugged him really tight. And I said, please don't go. And he said, Mom, you have to let go. You're creeping me out. And so he said, I'll see you soon, and I'll talk to you later. And he left. And a few days later, he was in Virginia Beach, and he was setting up his apartment. And he said, don't worry if you don't hear from me. He said, on Friday, the moving van's coming. On Saturday, my furniture is coming, the new furniture I just bought, and my new TV. And Sunday, I'm giving a party, a World Cup party. And he said, so if you don't hear from me, don't freak out. It's just, I'm busy, but I'll talk to you Sunday night. And I said, great. And I was busy actually setting up my own office, so I really didn't think too much about it. But Sunday night, I never got the call. And I started to get worried, and then I said, well, Sean always had a propensity to lose his phone, so maybe in all the chaos, he somehow lost his phone. But then Monday came, and I hadn't heard anything Monday morning. And I got a phone call from a girl that he was dating, and she said, she was in the military. She said, have you heard from Sean? She said, I've been calling him and texting him. He's not responding. And I started to get worried. And she said, well, don't freak out. She said, let me call the base, excuse me, where he's assigned. Let me see if he's checked in. So she called, and they said, yes, he's here. He's doing a walk around. We'll have him call you as soon as he gets back. She relayed that message to me, and I thought, I remember thinking, when he calls, boy, is he going to get an earful. I was really mad at him. But the call never came. And his dad and I knew something wasn't right, so we called the Virginia Beach police, and we asked them to do a wellness check. And that's when I got the call that no parent ever wants to get. And there was a detective there, and he said, is your son Sean McCarthy? I said, yes. Still didn't register. Excuse me. He said, we found him deceased in his apartment. He's been shot. NCIS is on their way. The Navy will contact you with further instructions. And that was it. Phone call ended. And I know I was in shock at that point, but I remember saying to his dad, we need to go bring Sean home. I don't want him with strangers. So we called his sister, and of course she was devastated. She flew to Arizona. And the next day we all flew to Virginia Beach. And I remember that long, long flight. And I was thinking to myself, how can I survive this? How can I never talk to him again? How can I never feel his hugs? And I wasn't really sure, to be honest with you, if I wanted to survive it. But Sean had very different plans for me. And what he later came in and said was, oh, we're going to communicate. I just have to teach you a new language. And that language is the language of spirit. So we got to Virginia Beach, and I opened my luggage. And I don't know if you can see this. I hope that you can. On top of all my clothes was this foot-long white feather. And I looked at Kevin, and I looked at his sister, and I said, who put the feather in my luggage? And they said, why would we put a feather in your luggage? And then I remembered that a feather was a way that spirit communicated with you. And I held on to this feather for dear life, like a baby would with a pacifier. I didn't let it go because I knew in some way that Sean was trying to communicate with me. And then the next day, as we were waiting for the police, waiting for the Navy to show up, my sister said, "Do you want a Coke?" I don't even drink Coke, but for some reason I said yes. And she went over to the little refrigerated area at the hotel, grabbed a Coke, paid for it. And when she gave it to me, the name Sean was on it. And we both started to cry because I knew he was working really, really hard to let me know that he was there. And we had his service, and there were lots of other synchronicities and ways that he showed us that he was there. But on the final day before we left, I had a visitation from him. And the way that you can tell a visitation from a dream is that you never forget a visitation. Now, Sean passed on June 26, 2014, and I remember it just like it was yesterday. And he was standing there, and he had his navy whites on. He looked so handsome. He had the biggest smile on his face. But in his left arm, he was holding a blue blanket, and he said, "I have my brother with me." And he said, "I have to go now." And he was standing behind some type of turnstile. It almost looked like a train turnstile, but I didn't see a train. All I could see was him standing behind this turnstile. And I said, "I know, sweetie, I know." And then they just kind of faded away in this mist. And I remember opening my eyes and waking up and thinking, although I was sad, I was comforted in that my boys were together. And then we got home, and I heard about a medium, and her name is Michelle Beltrain. And he'd only been on the other side a few weeks. And a friend of mine encouraged me to contact her. And I said, "I don't really know what to say. I just need to know he's okay." And Michelle is an incredible evidential medium. And she said two things to me that I remember verbatim to this day. And again, remember, it was almost 6 years ago. She said, Sean said to tell his dad he was with him on his birthday. I know it was a sad time, but he never left his side. And when we should have been celebrating Kevin's birthday, we were planning Sean's service. We were in Virginia Beach. And the next thing she said was, "Oh," and he said, "Tell his sister it's okay if she moves in with her boyfriend." And I thought, I'll give you the birthday thing, but I said, no, you're wrong on that one. Excuse me. She said, "Well, it's not me. Sean is telling me he likes him, and it's okay if she moves in with her boyfriend." So I thought, well, the next phone call after I hang up will be to my daughter, Shannon. So, and not that she even had to check in with me, but I thought for sure she would let me know. So I called her, and she said, "How was the reading?" I said, "It was wonderful." Sean said, "You're moving in with Eddie," who is now her husband, by the way. And there was complete silence on the phone. She said, "How did you know that?" And I said, "Well, your brother's tattling on you like he did when he was here." And she said, "We just talked about moving in together last night." Now, there's no way. I didn't know about it. They just talked about it the night before. She was having some type of communication with him, and I couldn't deny it. And I remember getting off that phone call and being on a high because I knew, even though I couldn't see him, I knew Sean was still an integral part of our life. And then the signs started accelerating. And I don't know if it was because I became more of a believer I don't really know. I can't explain it, except he was working overtime to make sure that I knew he had never left. And lights were turning on. And when I say lights, it wasn't just you could flick a switch. There is a love seat that we have in the family room, and there's a tall light there. And in order for that light to go on, you actually have to get behind the love seat and to turn it on. So most of the time it just never goes on because I'm too lazy to do it. But one night I was laying there by myself and I said, Sean, if you're here, let me know. And that light started to glow. And I knew he was in the room, even though I couldn't see him. And then it was probably a week or two later, I slept on the couch because I wanted to be close to him. His urn was in the little library area. And I remember I was cold. Even though it was summer, I was cold, but I didn't want to get up and try to find the covers. So I thought, forget it, I'll just fall asleep. And then the covers were pulled over me and even kind of tucked in. And I remember saying, thank you. And the next day I said to Kevin, thank you for covering me up last night. It was cold. And he said, I never left the room. And I know when I told him that, he must have thought I had lost my mind. And to be honest with you, I thought maybe I was losing my mind. Fast forward a few months later, and I meet an astrologer, Maxine Taylor, and she said, have you ever heard of the Afterlife conference? They're having one in Scottsdale. I said, no, I'd never heard of it. She said, you need to go. It's going to change your life. You need to go. So I went, and it did. It changed my life because these people were speaking my language. And I remember watching Dr. Gary Schwartz give his speech and watching Dr. Mark Pitstick talk and watching Suzanne Wilson do a gallery reading. And I was blown away. It was amazing. But I was also a little lost because I didn't know where I should go with this. And then this beautiful woman got up to speak named Elizabeth. And she talked about her organization called Helping Parents Heal. And I said, that's it. That's where I belong. And after the meeting had ended, I went over to her, I introduced myself, and she gave me the sweetest hug. And she said, please join us, which obviously I did. And I thought, I met my tribe. This is my home. This is my new family. And when I went home and I tried to explain it to my own family, they just didn't understand. And I really didn't expect them to, but I have to say it was really frustrating for me. But Sean had other ideas. So it came to Thanksgiving and we were all sitting outside, and it was my daughter Shannon, Kevin, Sean's godmother, Kathy. And she had brought these beautiful wine glasses that were etched with a dragonfly, and 3 of us were drinking wine, but the other glass, there were 4, the other glass was still in the wine case. And actually it was covered with another piece of glass with a key to be protected. And as we raised our glasses to toast Sean, we heard a glass break. And I looked around and I said, did you hear that? And everybody said yes. And we all ran into the house because my dog Banshee, I didn't want him to cut himself wherever this glass was. And we all went in different areas to look for this broken glass. We couldn't find it. We couldn't explain where the sound came from. And that night when I was putting the glasses away, I washed them, and when I opened the cabinet, the other wine glass was gone. And to this day, I haven't found it. And I even had my kitchen remodeled and everything was taken out of every cabinet, every drawer. I never found it. Was that Sean? I kind of think it was. But I can't explain it. And even though I had all of these incredible validations, I still wanted to know where Sean was. And I remember saying over and over to him, "Where are you? Where are you?" And I guess if you ask long enough, Spirit will answer. So it was April 4th. It was an Easter Sunday. And I had just finished kickboxing. And I remember going in and taking a shower. And I went outside to just have some appetizers and relax. And something started happening in my body. My toes started to curl in a way that it was almost frightening. My fingers started to curl and cramp. And I said to Kevin, I have to get something to eat because I'm severely low in magnesium and potassium. So as I started to eat something, the pain subsided, the cramping went away, and I thought, okay, I'm fine. I felt fine. And later that evening, I went into the house and I got my PJs on, and I remember I was sitting on the couch having a conversation, and it was like I closed my eyes here, I opened my eyes, and I was in spirit. I was in another place. You can call it heaven, another dimension. I don't know. I just know that it was the most wonderful place. It was home. I was home. And I know Michelle Claire, the beautiful Michelle, talked about her experience, multiple experiences on the other side. And I know Deborah Martin talked about her experiences. And when I listened to them and they said there are no words, they're absolutely right. There are no words to explain the love that you feel, the security, the safety. It's home. And I remember looking to my right, and there was my dad. And he had the biggest smile on his face. And I started smiling and I was beaming. And I remember he looked fabulous. He was younger looking, still my dad, but younger looking, healthier looking. And he had more hair. And I remember thinking, wow, he looks incredible. If he looks that good, I wonder what I look like. And I looked down, and I had eyes to see, but I didn't have a physical body. I had a body, but it was a body of light. It was like I was wearing this gown of light. It was, again, if I use the vernacular of like spectacular, beautiful, wonderful, it just doesn't explain it. It was incredible. And I remember thinking, I'm home. I'm home. And as soon as I had that emotion, something shifted. And I realized on an energetic level, I couldn't stay. And it wasn't a language, as I'm speaking to you right now, it was more telepathically, but I was told that I hadn't completed my mission yet. And it was part of my soul agreement. And I had to go back. And that quickly, I opened my eyes and I was in the emergency room, and I remember them saying, she's back. Now my heart didn't stop, but I left my body. And I remember having a conversation many, many months later with Dr. Eben Alexander, and he assured me that yes, you were on the other side. And I remember waking up and being a little bit angry. No, I was a lot angry that I was back here. But I also thought I got to glimpse into what all of our children are experiencing, the incredible amount of love and peace and happiness and joy that they're experiencing right now. And after that, Sean came to me and he said, well, now I can expand a little bit for you. He said, I'm in school. I go to school all the time, more like a university, but I'm in school and I'm learning lots of new things. And he said, I'm dating. And he said, you know, Mom, I usually date brunettes, but I'm dating this really cute blonde. And he said, don't worry, it's nothing serious. It's nothing serious, but we're having a great time. And he said, I hang out with Grandpa, my dad. And he said, sometimes we drive old cars, vintage cars across the country. And he said, I still play golf and tennis. And he said, now I know you get it. You understand. And I thought, wow, how lucky are you? What an amazing life our kids are having. And I said, thank you for that. Thank you. And a few months later, I had a reading with Suzanne Wilson, and she said to me, oh, you were on the other side. And she said, you saw your dad, and he was beaming, and you were beaming. And I said, yes, yes, yes. She said, oh, but you haven't completed your mission. She said exactly what I had been told. And she said to me, you know, Linda, that was one of your exit points. She said, you were supposed to die that day, which I set up. She got my attention. She said, but you haven't finished your mission yet. And to be honest with you, I still am not quite sure what my mission is, but evidently I haven't completed it yet because I'm still here. But as Elizabeth says, we're in school. We haven't graduated yet. I haven't completed my mission yet. None of us have if we're still here. But we all have a purpose of still being here. And it could just be the smile at the stranger that saves their life that day. But we all have a reason to still be here. And I guess if I could leave you with any message, it's this. We're all going to be called to that final dance. Embrace it, because it's absolutely spectacular on the other side. Don't be afraid of it. You know, we live in a society right now, especially right now, where there's so much fear. There's fear of the coronavirus, and now there's fear of some giant beetles or something that are attacking our beehives. We have a lot of fear right now. And I hope after hearing a little bit about my story, and I didn't want to take up too much of your time, but I hope that death is no longer something that you fear. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Linda. Oh my goodness, that was wonderful. And you know, I think that a lot of people were identifying with the different signs that you were saying about what Sean was doing, the lights and the dream visits as well. And I just would love for you to tell a little bit about your book. It's of course the story of Sean. It's about you being able to understand what's on the other side. But also one thing that's different about your book from other books is that it has lots of resources at the back that are really, really helpful to parents who are bereaved parents, but more like shining light parents. So they need resources that are a little bit more open-minded, maybe than the traditional books that you might find. And so you have resources that are very, very helpful. And anyway, maybe you'd like to just talk a little bit about that.
Sure. I wanted to share my story, but even more so, I wanted to give the reader as many resources as possible, because the book isn't about just me and Sean. As Sean said to me, the book is much bigger than me. And he was right. And so I've included a myriad of resources in the back, pages and pages, from people that I've had personal experiences with, mediums, oh my goodness, researchers, even investigators, who Bob Olson, who's investigating the other side. So I want the reader to know that there are lots of different resources out there for you, and it's really just about seeing what resonates with you. And I've given a website for each person. I've given a little bit of bio on them. So I highly encourage you, if you do get the book, and it's I priced it very reasonably so that everybody would have an opportunity to read it. But look at the resources, read their bios, go to their websites, and see what resonates with you, because dying really is a myth. We physically die, our body dies, this vehicle goes away, but we don't die. And all of these resources, every single one of them say the same thing, maybe in a little bit different language, but every single one of them is highly encouraging. And I know they've made a huge difference in my life in understanding, before my experience, that their life continues on. So I hope
Well, one of the biggest resources that I think that I would like to mention here is the Caring Listeners. And you're at the head of the Caring Listeners. And if anyone on here doesn't know about the Caring Listeners, if you go to our website, www.helpingparentsheal.org, the Caring Listeners is on the drop-down menu underneath the groups, and there are now 14 members of the Caring Listeners that Linda heads up, and anyone can call these Caring Listeners whenever they need to speak to someone, and it's of course completely free. So I just want all of you to know about that. I also want to just say, I think these are wonderful things that people are saying. First of all, Babette already is reading your book right now, which is wonderful. And then Lindsay is asking, are you ever sad? Do you still cry? I want the same peace. So could you tell us about that, Linda?
Do I still cry? Sometimes, but I will tell you that it's very short. Sean doesn't really allow me to cry anymore, because I know he's here. There are moments, perhaps like the birth of my grandchild, and I thought, oh, wouldn't it be great? And then I found myself saying, what are you talking about? Was with him before he was born. So I guess I'm not going to say I never have those moments. I certainly aren't. I don't sob anymore. It might be a little bit of sadness occasionally, or maybe just missing him a bit, but for the most part, he's so present in my life every single day, that no, I think I know I'm past grief for sure. And I wish that for you too. But thank you for the question. It was wonderful.
Well, and Rebecca is saying, we dance in two worlds. The world I came back to no longer resonates. It's actually lonely. What do you do to bridge the two? So I guess that Rebecca has had a similar near-death experience from what I can understand. That's amazing.
Well, and I think we're all individuals and we deal with situations differently. When I came back, I was mad. I was mad that I was back. But I also realized that this is so short. This is temporary. We're just custodians of everything that we think we own. I learned that very quickly on the other side. This is temporary. And my father, when I saw him, he had been gone. He had transitioned over 50 years ago. And yet when I saw him, it was like 15 minutes ago. It was nothing. There was no time on the other side. So it wasn't like he had been gone forever and there was no time. It was like I just saw him recently. So I guess everybody deals with it differently. I came back with an amazing sense of peace. And I know that in the blink of an eye, and I do mean that I will be home. I just haven't finished school yet. But one day I will officially graduate and be home. So, but like I said, everybody deals with it differently. And I'd love to, if she wants to connect, I'd love to hear about her experience as well.
Wonderful. Yes, I will. Hopefully she will connect with you. And I wanted to say that Erin said that Linda keeps mentioning Virginia Beach. This was earlier on in your presentation. And it so happens that I'm wearing my Virginia Beach sweatshirt this evening. Coincidences, which is wonderful.
Yes. Yeah.
And,
go Hokies.
and then Shannon's in Paris. It's amazing. I'm always so impressed when she's able to attend these things so late at night.
I love Paris. One of my favorite cities.
Well, she's very lucky to be there, but maybe not so much in quarantine, I'm afraid. But she says, to what do you contribute the most towards your ability to communicate with your son? Do you still get readings? If so, at what interval? Thank you so much. Sincerely for being a caring listener. Your son is undoubtedly so very proud of you.
Oh, thank you so much. When I had my experience on the other side, my communication with Sean became much stronger. So much so that I know people thought I was crazy because I could feel him. I've seen him walk by me. I've had hugs from him, physical hugs where he came up behind me and I kissed his left hand. I could feel the hair on his arms. I held his right arm against my cheek. I've had these interactions with him that are undeniable. And so I don't know if it was because I came back and had a completely different perspective. My energy changed for sure. And so that opened me up a little bit more to be able to communicate with him. But the reality is we all can. And I hear all of our amazing mediums say the same thing. You can communicate with your kids. Suzanne Wilson told me something that I would love to share with all of you. And this was such a gift that she gave me, because I said to her, this was early on, and I said, I hate buying a card now. I hate walking by that row of cards that says to my son. And she listened and she said, why? Why are you sad? And I thought, well, I said, I can't buy him a card anymore. And she said, of course you can. Why can't you buy him a card? She said, buy him a card, hold it up to your heart, and he will get an exact duplicate. Well, after that conversation, I can tell you, I made a beeline to CVS to go buy some cards. And I bought funny cards, and I bought some little risque cards that we used to give each other, and it was so much fun. And I came home, excuse me, I came home and I held a card to my heart and I put it next to his urn. And later I had a reading with a different medium, and she said, oh, by the way, Sean said to tell you, thank you for the card. So if that helps at all, please know that you can still buy cards for your children and they still receive them. I hope that helps.
That was beautiful. And it's true. I mean, of course, we still need to be talking to them. We still need to be writing them. And I just want to let you know that Suzanne said, Linda, you are truly amazing. Thank you so much. I love hearing your story. Peace is a beautiful gift. Love to you. Kit said, I wish to thank Linda for her phone call as a caring listener. I will never forget her compassion and the comforting conversation we had. This was my welcome to HPH, which is wonderful. And I'm so glad to hear that as well. And then when you were talking about hearing Sean, Babette is asking, do you hear Sean in your mind, hear his voice? How is it that you hear him?
Yes, it's clairaudient. I do hear him. Sometimes he's really loud and I have to tell him to tone it down. I'm like, I hear you, I hear you. Yes, I do hear his voice. And it isn't, at first I thought it was in my head. I was like, I'm just making this up, but no, I definitely hear him. And he will, in fact, the other day, his dad was wearing one of Sean's Virginia Tech shorts. And out of the blue, Sean said, my legs are much better looking than his. And I almost spit out what I was eating. So, so we have these interactions all the time now. So yes, he and I communicate daily.
That's amazing. And I want to mention a question from Babette, and I think it's a really interesting question because I'd like to just quickly say one thing beforehand. She's asking, do they want us to give them gifts, since you were talking about the card, etc.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say that I know that Irene, every time that Carly has a birthday, she buys a cake for someone else, but she does it anonymously. I think that what they really like is for us to be giving gifts to other people in their honor. So I think that that is something that just makes them so, so happy. But maybe you can answer that question yourself.
Well, I still put out Christmas stockings for him, and I fill it with gifts for others. And I donate in his name to different organizations. And then they will, what I do is they will send me a letter or something, and I will wrap that up. It'll say, thank you for your donation in honor of Sean. And I will wrap that up and put it in a little box or something under the tree for him. But yes, they absolutely are thrilled when you do something for somebody else. And Sean, in the physical world, was always so selfless. When he was younger, and I write about this in my book, his godmother, Kathy, was taking Sean and Shannon to FAO Schwartz in New York City. And I had given them each $20, which back then was a lot of money for an 8-year-old. And I'd given them small bills. And by the time they got to FAO Schwartz, Sean was almost out of money. And Kathy said, what happened? She thought he had lost his money. And he said, oh no. He said, there were homeless people holding up signs saying they were hungry. And so I figured they needed the money more than I needed a toy. They needed to eat. So it's especially important for me to donate in his name, be it his birthday, Christmas, even if I just feel like it. He loves it. And all our kids do. They love that.
That's beautiful, and I agree. And there's an interesting question from Lindsay. She says, does your husband and daughter, or do they, accept all of this you're telling us? Did you read and talk with him too?
That is a wonderful question. My husband did not. In fact, he really thought I was making all of it up. And he said, this is just your way, you're in denial, and this is just your way of coping. And this comes from the linear mind of someone who studied physics in college. And I understood where he was coming from, but it didn't change my mind. And my daughter was getting signs from her brother. In fact, she was getting ready for work one day, and he turned the light off in her bathroom. And she said, for whatever reason, she said, Sean, I'm running late. Will you turn the light back on? And then the light came on. And she said, thank you. Just like he was standing there. And then she left to go to work. So she was more open-minded. And in fact, she was the one that, and I didn't talk about it here, but I do talk about it in the book. She was the one that introduced me to a place called the Integratron, which is in California. And it's out in the Joshua Tree forest area. They have sound healings there, and she had an incredible experience. And she said, I want you to go with me. And I actually had an out-of-body experience and was able to interact with Sean there. I won't go into it right now, but so she's definitely more open-minded. But my husband had a reading with, and it was really just to prove me wrong, with Isabella Johnson. And he said, I'm going to have a reading with her. And anybody who's had a reading with Isabella knows she's spectacular. He said, I'm going to do it just to prove you wrong. And I said, okay. And he went into Sean's room, closed the door. And when he came out, his eyes were swollen. He had been sobbing. And he held me and he said, I just talked to Sean. And I was so happy for him, because he realized at that point I wasn't making it up. And Sean is very present in his life now as well. I hope that answers your question.
That was wonderful. I was just checking because I wanted to see, we have Isabella Johnson coming to speak to Helping Parents Heal. And I wanted to see when it was, when you were telling this story. So it's on Thursday night, and she's amazing. And I'm so glad that you told about that, because Isabella will make believers out of the biggest skeptics.
And my husband was the biggest skeptic. He absolutely was.
And, you know, I think it's Badisha was saying that she'd seen you on Life to Afterlife, and that she was so happy to hear your story here. And I just want to say that Isabella is also on it, not in the same one that we're in, but she's amazing. She really is. And I don't know how many people on here have had a reading with Isabella, but she does about 15 a day, which is something that no normal medium can do, because it's exhausting. So anyway, I hope that all of you will be here to be able to hear her. And we have a few more minutes. If there are a lot of people saying thank you, and they've ordered the book as well.
Oh, thank you.
Susan and Natalie have ordered the book on Amazon, which is really nice. And maybe one more question before we sign off, if there's anything else that people would like to ask, or if not, I also just want to remind people that we have a meeting tomorrow as well. Irene, what is our meeting tomorrow? We have a meeting every day this week.
Yes, we do. Tomorrow, Ann Van Orsdell speaking. And I also have my chat from 5 to 6 tomorrow. So we have that. And then
so on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Right. Join us. We have a lot of fun. And then Wednesday evening,
and
Tina
for
Powers
some reason,
is speaking.
my internet is unstable. I hope that you guys can hear me.
Okay. I was just saying that, yeah, Wednesday is Tina Powers Thursdays, Isabella, and Friday, Ernie Jackson, Shining Light Dad board member, is speaking. And then next week we have, on Monday, my sister is speaking about PTSD and grief. Tuesday, Suzanne Giesman with Wolf's parents, and they're going to be discussing the book Wolf's Message. Wednesday next week, Sandra Champlain. Next Thursday, Dr. Raymond Moody. Next Friday, Kat Daly. And that's only the next 2 weeks.
Wow, wow, wow.
So,
I'll be glued to this Zoom screen for the next 2 weeks. So
yeah, we have a lot of great meetings coming up.
spectacular. Raymond Moody. Wow.
Yeah.
It will be wonderful.
This was wonderful.
And-
Thank you, Linda. Great meeting.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you all for being here.
It was a wonderful meeting, and I'm going in and out. I think my internet is having trouble thank thank everyone, and maybe you'd like to unmute and say goodbye and thank you to Linda if you'd like to. And thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. That was such a beautiful
Thank
thing.
you.
Thank you. It's amazing.
Thank you.
Love you all. Thank you.
Love you.
Thank you so much, Linda. It's
Thank
wonderful.
you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.